I'm Alex Frank, and while my skin continues to thaw out from being at the game in Buffalo today, unfortunately, the Bengals' playoff hopes are now on thin ice. And Mike Santagana, a big reason why is just an all too familiar fourth quarter today for the Bengals.
Yeah, a when you have a big time matchup with two big time quarterbacks, the one who doesn't make the mistake ends up winning. They both played incredible, but only one of them played mistake free football, or at least the defense didn't capitalize on them.
And coach, we talk about the Bengals defense. Stop me if you've heard this before. The opposing team's tight ends had a field day with the Bengals defense.
You know what? We talked about it last week on both shows. How the injury report and where those tight ends were for Buffalo coming into the game, and you know what? All three of them played. All three of them caught the ball. A couple of them scored. Have to find that. You have to say, hey, okay, play action got a lot of us, but the safety's got to come up and make some plays.
Geno Stone did not on that last play. All that and much more coming up on Bengal Squad.
Good day. It's the Bengals Squad. Everything Cincinnati Bengals every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the Queen City. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. From the jungle to the playoffs, the Bengals Squad Show starts now.
Welcome to the Bengal Squad Show on the Locked On Podcast Network, now the number one sports podcast network in America and the world, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. I'm Alex Frank, Mike Santagana, Coach Art Valero with me today as they are after every Bengals game. A 39-34 loss to the Buffalo Bills today in Orchard Park, New York. I was there. I just got to tell you straight up, one of the best environments I've ever been in, one of the best atmospheres at an NFL game I've been in. Unfortunately, an all too familiar game for the Cincinnati Bengals over the last two seasons. Let's get right into it. The Bills scored 21 points in the fourth quarter. We'll get into how much Joe Burrow's two interceptions played into that. But, Mike and Art, when you look at this, what's your biggest 30,000-foot view takeaway as to why the Bengals once again could not finish when it came winning time?
I think you look at both sides of the ball and you get a great game from Burrow, but you can't make that throw on that package play. Well, I think you can. And Art, you could maybe have more experience looking at these because the under center package play, that's not really as much from this era, although Josh Allen threw a few as well. Line up, you're just taking that because he gets a corner blitz there. What I remember about throwing that specific ball when I've watched quarterbacks in the past is the Brett Favre pump and throw around them. Maybe he thought he didn't have time to do something like that. Maybe he just thought he'd get more on it. I feel like the execution there was actually the biggest issue in that Burrow just didn't get enough on the ball to get it up there. Incredible play from Benford to catch it, run, score a touchdown. But I thought the decision was actually okay. I was wondering what you thought on that, and I just thought the execution was wrong because if it gets over there, there's no corner. The next guy, nearest guy is like 8-10 yards away. So it is a lot of access.
Oh, true. I mean, I think if he puts a little bit more on it, I think it was kind of, do I have to get it over the top of him? Can I sidearm it and get it around him? And I think it just came out of his hands. And I think once he threw it and he knew that there was nobody else there, that it was the wrong decision to make at that time.
Yeah. And maybe that is, I think the part of it is that it's too risky. It's too risky to try that. You're up 10 points or whatever they were at the time. I think they're up 10 at that moment. So you're up 10, too risky to attempt that when you can just keep handing the ball off, waste some clock, and try to get to the end, try to get to the finish line. And then, it's the Bengals and Joe Burrow, and I don't want them to take the ball out of his hands. And I think tip ball interceptions, I don't put that much on the quarterback. Yes, he could have gotten it more around him. He threw it after he landed, but the defensive tackle was just so long and tall that he still had his hand way up there. It was after the jump, I believe, is when the ball actually came out, though. So he's trying to time that. And those ones, I hear Manning talk about all the time. Shouldn't he said should be illegal. It's just unfortunate. It's something that's going to happen to you as a quarterback when you throw the ball. Yes, you would like for him to see the hand and maybe throw just a tick later in front of him or something, but it's the NFL, and those windows that appear open close faster than you can blink. So I understand having to get it there too. So it is, that one was more of an is what it is, but that first one was a bit of a meltdown. It was a catastrophic play from Joe Burrow himself. And then the defense was in the position twice to turn the tide despite that. I mean, they never forced the Bills to punt the entire game. So that's the only time they got to stop, I think, was the fumble. So, which is huge. But you get into 4th and goal, and what's the play call? The Bills have a backup right tackle in this game, and he has been getting beat by Myles Murphy in this game. And I think you're fair to criticize that. Algorand didn't have Myles Murphy on the field on 4th and goal, rushed 3 all defensive tackles, and dropped Joseph Osai, who's been on a heater, into coverage. And Josh Allen just stood there because there is no type of pressure on him. And then the other time they have a chance to make a big play for the defense here. 3rd and 15. They just got a sack. You can get off the field, give Joe Burrow about a minute left. It's a small chance, but it's a chance to win the game. And they played some type of man without any spy. And so Josh Allen was able to run for all 15 yards. I mean, that ball is not getting thrown probably unless a corner falls down or something. And you're kind of just hoping for maybe a first and, a penalty that gives you a first down or something. I was surprised that you have to obviously honor it, but why wouldn't you want vision on the quarterback? It's Josh Allen. Like, yes, the spy is one thing, but I thought they would just go out in a soft zone, make sure that you're playing like a cover 2 type thing and have everybody around 15 yards and the 2 safeties deep beyond that, something like that. Because who cares about them completing a pass under 15 yards? You will need to have vision on Josh Allen. That is your scariest opponent right now. So I was wondering as well what you thought about that one, Art, because those 2 calls, I didn't think Al was like terrible throughout the game, but it's just the biggest moment. And it were just calls that had me scratching my head of like, I don't think I would do this. I think I would do something different here, but it is easy for me to do with the hindsight and everything.
You're exactly right, Mike.
You know what? I think you're exactly right. As you looked at the game, you're saying for the most part, the defense they held their own until the 4th quarter. And they kept the ball in front. They stymied the run. They didn't stop it, but they certainly wouldn't killing them. They weren't ripping those things off like Buffalo was against Pittsburgh. So they kept everything in front of them. The tight ends got them on play action pass, the deep over routes and some of the nakeds that came across, but they kept everything in front of them until right there at the end. They did a fairly good job of stopping the run Cook, but they forgot one key running back there that's pretty good runner, and that's Josh Allen.
Yeah, a lot to unpack there from both of you. And I think that I think what's interesting is we look at this 4th quarter, and Art, you mentioned it. The fact that the Bengals did a good job early on in this game, keeping everything in front of them. Mike, the other 4th down stop that you were wondering about, it came at the end of the first half where Josh Allen on 4th and 4, I think he threw it off of a helmet.
Correct.
So the Bengals got a stop there, which was good, and they went up 21-11 at the half, and you're feeling pretty good about things. But for me, it's Josh Allen's 40-yard touchdown run completely changed the game. It completely changed the game. But how is it that every single week I know what the Bengals defense needs to do? Mike, you know. Coach, you know. And every single week it is the same old song and dance. They can't stop the run. Buffalo today, 29 carries, 183 yards. Josh Allen had 9 for 78. I guarantee you he had 75% of those yards in the 4th quarter without looking at the play-by-play. Covering tight ends. Oh, stop me if you've heard that before. Let's go through the Bills' receiving logs today. Dawson Knox, 6 catches, 93 yards. Dalton Kincaid, 4 catches, 41 yards and a touchdown. Jackson Hawes. Who? Yeah, Jackson Hawes. 1 catch for 3 yards and a touchdown on 4th and goal. Oh, by the way, the Bills scored 2 touchdowns on 4th and goal today. So there is that. On 4th down, one of which was on 4th and goal. So there is that. Bills receivers today. Gabe Davis, 2 catches. Khalil Shakir, 2 catches. Tyrell Shavers, who? Yeah, Tyrell Shavers, 1 catch. Keon Coleman, 2 catches. Josh Allen wasn't beating you with his vertical passing game with his receivers. No, he was beating you with tight ends over the middle. Play after play after play after play. It is embarrassing to me how we know, and Bengals fans know, I'm sitting with a Bengals fan right next to me today at the game who said they're going to run tight end right over the middle. And then on the 4th and goal play, I had someone, my cousin, sitting next to me. He said Josh Allen's going to run around and then hit a wide open tight end. If we know how that play is going to be, Coach, I'm going to turn back to you. Why can't this defense find a way throughout the week to say, hey, we need to do something different to stop it? And yet it is the same old story, yet a different game. Coach, go ahead.
I think when you just start to look at it and the troubles that the Bengals have had throughout the year, even before we came on, the problem was the youth at linebacker and the safeties not making plays. You know, don't have to necessarily worry about the outside receivers. You know, they're playing a lot of too high, which either they're going to play quarters and 4 deep, or they're going to play 2 deep with the corners rolled up underneath. Either the linebackers aren't getting any depth and play action, they're getting too involved in it, or the safeties aren't rallying up in quarters enough to stop those crossing routes from happening. And I think that's where, you know, you start to worry about it. And I can remember a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about Al Golden saying, hey, how much simpler can I make it? Well, you know what? It's about execution, not simplicity. And they will carve you up, as teams have, with the tight ends on the deep crossing routes and, you know, the basic crosses over the middle or just sitting over the ball. But yet we're not getting people rallying. Either their depths are too deep or they're not deep enough. And it's aggravating from a fan standpoint, and it's really aggravating from a person that watches the game from a different perspective. That's kind of crazy.
You used the word simple. Al Golden used the word vanilla throughout the preseason, which, okay, maybe you don't want to show a lot during the preseason. But if you keep having to use those words simplifying and vanilla, that shows you that your players are not good. It shows you that your players just do not understand what you are preaching and what you're trying to do on defense. Like, how do you not understand on 3rd and 15 or whatever it was, if you're going to play man coverage, how do you not have someone in the middle of the field? They're not going to throw it there. And if you think they're going to throw, that's a whole other issue. And then, I mean, Geno Stone was the only guy that could tackle him. He's not tackling Josh Allen. I don't care who it is. So it was just an abomination of, like, let me go back to this. Before that play that decided the game, literally BJ Hill or Chris Jenkins or both they were running off the field. Why? Are you thinking they're going to throw the ball here? No, they're not going to throw the ball there, because the Bills are smart enough, and Joe Brady, their offensive coordinator, and Sean McDermott, their head coach, they've both been there for a long time. They're not dumb to realize if we throw the ball and it's incomplete, we have to punt the ball back to Joe Burrow. We're not going to do that. No, we're going to run the ball. And if we get it, which we probably will, because the Bengals defense isn't going to be able to stop us because they don't have a spy in the middle of the field, it is asinine to me that the same issues, like basic issues, we'll talk about simplifying and vanilla, you can't even master that, and yet you're still trying to do it. I truly don't understand. Like, it's the definition of insanity, and if there's a word beyond that, I mean, that's probably where we're going to. But it goes back to a point. And if he's listening, shout out to Fox 19 Sports Director Joe Danneman in Cincinnati, because I told him this after the Jets game when the Bengals lost 39-38. I told him this. Joe Burrow is good enough to overcome a bad offensive line. Here's the funny thing, though. The offensive line has not been bad today. He's only been sacked twice in his last 2 games since coming back from injury. But he is not, let me phrase this carefully. He can overcome a bad offensive line, but he cannot overcome a bad defense. Look at Brett Favre, okay? One of my all-time favorite non-Bengals players, and really one of my all-time favorite players in NFL history. Brett Favre if I'm remembering correctly, and if I'm not, excuse me, I don't think he ever had a great offensive line in front of him. But what he did have, now Brett Favre was one of the greatest improvisational players in the history of the NFL, if not the greatest. But what he did have was a defense with Reggie White, Leroy Butler, and a bunch of others. Complementary football matters. Mike, do you concur with that?
Yeah, I think it matters. It's tough because I do think we should talk about the offensive line because they played well again. You are thinking correctly. I think like that 96 Green Bay Packers Super Bowl team was the number one defense in the entire league. So it's usually when you're good at both ends is when you have championship quality performances. The only times I could think of the opposite happening, it's older football. It's the 2000 Ravens. They didn't have an offense that you're worried about. And then the most modern one I could think of where they played complementary football in the playoffs, so was that 2013 Broncos team. I mean, one of the best defenses we've seen, but the offense wasn't really there. But the offense also, when, Manning was in the playoffs, didn't turn the ball over either. They kind of just killed the clock and just let their defense go to work, and they'd score a little bit, and that's enough. The Bengals offense is great. It is not so good that the defense can be the worst in the league and they'll still make the playoffs. I think that's where we are. And that is something that's nearly impossible to do in the first place. They would be in a better position and they could make it if they would have just beaten the Bears and the Jets. This wouldn't have been as big of a loss because you're in position to win those games and you lose both of those fielding a defense that looks like one of the worst in NFL history. They've improved from that, but again, it's a close game. They don't come away with it. It's not a moral victory. You have to point fingers around. We've done plenty with the defense. I do think you do a little bit with Burrow too on the interception, the first one. Second one to me is a little bit unfortunate, but you can, point your finger at him as well for that. I think the Bengals have never really done a good job of punishing guys when they jump. I think the Bengals offensive line, for all the improvements they've made, when guys get their hands up, I mean, I'd like to see them drive into their stomach, their area, and make them regret jumping. Because you see it with Fairchild, who's doing a great job blocking. And that's why the guy just jumps. He's like, I'm not getting through him, so let me just jump up. Well, Fairchild in that instant hit him right in the gut.
Yeah.
Make sure that he knows that like jumping isn't going to be a penalty-free type of move for you as a defensive lineman. Art, you coach the O-line, so do you teach your guys like that guy jumps, hit him? You're muted too, Art, by the way.
Sorry about that. Okay, Coach.
It's always nuts that the guy that doesn't get off the line of scrimmage is usually the guy that bats the ball down. With the exception of J.J. Watt. Everybody else that doesn't get a pass rush at all is the guy that bats the ball down. And he happens to be right in those throwing lanes. So that's one of the first things you start to teach, is, hey, they're going to try to bull rush you. Let's stop the bull rush. All of a sudden now, if they leave their feet, you immediately attack them. And you've got to force them to get their hands down. And we had Chris Sims was a quarterback for us who had a lot of balls batted down. Now, Chris was a tall kid, but yet he still it was timing with the ball coming out of his hands. And as you looked at it, it was the guard's play up front and them keeping the pocket on the line of scrimmage that caused the majority of those.
Yeah, and Joe Burrow's 2 interceptions from what you guys have been saying, and I agree with a lot of it. They are very interesting plays to dive into to dissect further because I think it does bring up some questions that I want to ask you guys, which we'll get to later on in today's show. But the stat that I go back to is the fact that the Bengals now have 7 losses over the last 2 seasons where they scored 33 or more points. 7 losses. The rest of the NFL combined and over the last 2 years has 10. And by the way, over 130 wins. But we're going to get back to the Bengals defense and personnel management and just again, a familiar theme that we have seen all season. But I also have some questions about the Bengals offense today because while they did play well, there were some glaring questions that stood out throughout the game that I want to ask you too, and we will get into those coming up next right here on Bengal Squad. This edition of Bengal Squad is brought to you by Aura Frames. The holidays are officially here, which means gift hunting season is on. And if you want something meaningful, personal, and guaranteed to get a reaction, Aura Frames is the gift that delivers every time. It's not just something you wrap. It's a way to share memories. Because Aura isn't your average picture frame. You can preload the frame with photos before gifting it, so when they plug it in, the memories are already there. No apps to figure it out, no setup headaches, just instant smiles. Who should you give this gift to? Well, grandparents, parents, newlyweds, anyone who loves photos. Endless uploads of pictures and 30-second videos through the Aura app. You can even add a personalized message right inside the frame so the gift feels thoughtful the moment it's open. Packaging comes gift ready, so there's no price tag, there's no wrapping needed. That's always good for me. It's a huge win. It's a holiday gift that actually gets used, not forgotten in a drawer. For a limited time, save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver matte frames, named #1 by Wirecutter, and you can use promo code LOCKEDON at checkout. That's AURA frames.com, promo code LOCKEDON. This deal is exclusive to listeners, and frames sell out fast. So order yours now to get it in time for the holidays. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. Don't forget to check out James Rapine and Jake Lisco and their breakdown of today's game, the Bengals and the Bills, on their daily Locked On Bengals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network in America and the world, your team every day. That is currently out on the Locked On Bengals YouTube channel and wherever you listen to podcasts. Bengal Squad, Mike Santagana, Art Valero, Alex Frank with you. This is our long-form conversational twice a week supplement to Locked On Bengals, talking all things Bengals. And there's still a lot to talk about, even though the Bengals at 4-9 with their playoff hopes on thin ice. So we talk about the Bengals defense. To me, it comes down to this, guys. It comes down to personnel management. I mean, seriously, I mentioned this in segment 1, but what are you doing on 3rd and 15 where you take your best run stoppers off the field? Why? Because it's 3rd and 15? You think they're going to throw? No. This is all about complementary football. This is about being smart. And I'm not saying these coaches are dumb, but I'm saying they are making basic in-game situational mistakes. And that, guys, is what we have seen over the last 2 seasons. And once again, in a game that was there for the taking. This is what is so aggravating to me. It's not just the fact that the Bengals offense, they've scored so many points in so many games, and yet they've lost. That's not the frustrating part. The frustrating part for me is you're up 28-18. Burrow hits Mike Gesicki for a touchdown. It's a great play. You're up 10 in the 4th quarter. Finish the game. If the Bills score, so be it. Finish the game. What are we doing on both sides of the ball that this team just simply can't finish?
It was too quick. First of all, after the Gesicki touchdown, that was when Josh Allen was about 3-4 plays later, and less than, I think, 2 minutes later, ran for that touchdown. So part of playing defense here, it's not just that they were giving up the touchdown, but you gave it up so fast that it essentially erased what you just did. Now you have to go back out there. I think that is one part of this that he's talked about too, where they didn't make the Bills work for those touchdowns when they had them. At least not that one. And we're talking about the 4th quarter. I feel like they weren't really making the Bills offense work very much. So that's part of it. I think the Burrow turnovers are part of it. Part of it as well, Samaje Perine was running a heck of a lot better than Chase Brown in this game. I think he was doing, I think he got, I don't know if he had, stud cleats and Chase Brown was trying to use the molds and slipping or something, but it seemed like he was able to get his footing better. He was able to pound the rock in the snow. athleticism doesn't show up as much. It's like the greatest show on turf wasn't the greatest show in the rain and snow. It was because it kind of levels the playing field a bit. So what Samaje lacks in athleticism, he makes up for in how hard and powerful he's able to run at his size. I think they could have leaned on him more. I think that's another part of this is they kept putting Chase Brown back out there. And I get it because Chase Brown is the more talented running back. He's the running back of the future for the team. But when P. Ryan is running, I mean, I didn't check it. I'm checking it right now. 83% success rate, which is just, did you get half the yards on first down and basically half the yards on first and second down and everything on third or fourth down. So you're picking up first downs on third and fourth down. You put yourself in manageable situations on second and third down. 83% success rate. Chase Brown, an 8% success rate. So you were getting pushed behind the sticks by running Chase Brown. Chase Brown had 12 carries and P. Ryan 6, I believe. I just think you could have leaned more on P. Ryan in this game. Maybe the small sample is the issue here. Maybe P. Ryan wasn't actually running that much better, but to my eye, he was. I thought he was the one that was running better between the two of them. So that was a little bit frustrating too. I would have loved to see them try to pound the rock with Samaje in those situations where the interceptions happened, because you could keep yourself in manageable second and third downs. The Bills' run defense was pretty poor going into this game. They did a great job on Chase Brown, but they weren't doing a great job on Samaje Perine. I think Brown was just having issues in terms of footing, in terms of playing in the snow. Perine's a vet too, so he's played in these snow games a lot. I know Chase Brown went to Illinois, and he's probably played in snow games. He's from Canada, so I assume he's played in snow games in his life. But the NFL's different. And I just felt like that was one of the frustrating things too, in terms of not finishing this game, was when the hand is that hot, I would ride it. I would have rode the hot hand, even if I think Brown is the guy. Not today, and that's okay. You are now the guy that's kind of spelling him, unless this starts turning the other way, because I just thought Samaje just ran so hard and was what he lacks in athleticism got kind of made up for by the conditions, and it became now his bruising and veteran experience is doing a lot for him.
P. Ryan, 6 carries, 31 yards. Chase Brown, 12 carries, 23 yards, and a touchdown. Jamar Chase also had an 8-yard run. Coach, I turn to you, because when the Bengals are up 28-25, Buffalo scores Josh Allen's 40-yard touchdown run. It's a great play. You can feel the crowd at Highmark Stadium kind of feel like they're back into the game. I'm having a conversation with the guy next to me who's a Bengals fan, and we're talking, okay, you have to find a way to run the football in the snow to bleed clock, but also that's exactly what it was. So when you're in that situation, when you're on offensive coaching staffs and you're in a game like that, in that situation, you're up by 3 with however many minutes to play, still a lot of time left where you can't be too conservative. You can't really bleed clock, even though I just said that. But what are you like when it comes to running the football? What are the conversations like on the sideline and throughout the week and throughout the offseason preparing for those moments when it comes to, hey, we got to be able to run the football when we're up by 3 and we have an opportunity to create some distance between us and our opponent?
Well, you know what? They're there every week, but it's just a matter of the people that are hearing it and saying it. Is it lip service, or is it something you really feel strongly about? Because when you look at it, it was tilted. You know, the Bengals did not rely on shortening of the game at all. Now, you jump out to 21-0 or 21 points right off the bat. You're great on third downs. That's all great. But those were manageable third downs. They weren't third and real long. So you got yourself in that position by running the football. And if you have efficient runs of 4 yards or more, you know, you can tie those back and back together. And then now the entire package works together, you know. And I think that I don't know what their rotation is like, their running back rotation, if there's specific plays that they want for specific guys, but people will figure that out right away. And it's just like the one that the throw on the wheel to Chase down the sideline. Tell me in practice, is he ever involved in a contested throw versus a nickel or a corner?
Yeah.
Probably not. Not like T. Higgins is, not like Jamar Chase is, not like, the tight ends are. So all of a sudden now, perfectly thrown ball, you got to come down with that. But if you're not in that situation, you're not going to. And I too thought that they abandoned the run a little bit early. I thought third downs, they kept the chains moving. They were moving the ball. And as the game progressed, I started to look at it and said, you know what? You have that very good first half offensively. And for the most part, defensively, you did your job.
Mm-hmm.
Who at halftime made the correctable corrections and adjustments, and then all of a sudden you went from 21 points to all of a sudden you max out at 28 or 35, whatever it is.
That's a good
who made
point.
the adjustments? And it felt like said, hey, you know what, Josh, if everybody gets good depth and everybody turns their back, you win it for us, which he was capable of and did.
Did you, Coach, like the Bengals? So up 3, they get inside Buffalo territory. They're moving the ball. And I'm thinking, okay, they're going to get points here. They're going to be up 6, maybe 10. Did you like the way they went about it, where they emphasized the pass, but then ultimately Joe Burrow throws a pick 6? Did you like their play calling sequence there?
Once we've had issues, Cincinnati's had issues in the red zone. And this was all Joe Flacco type. It wasn't necessarily since Joe Burrow's been in. But when you start to get down there and they're playing more coverage, you need to set things up. And you need to know you can be aggressive and still have those challenging plays and try to throw it to your 2 wideouts that are very, very good. But it was almost like it was T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, the tight end who is actually wasn't like Noah Fant. It was the guy that just came back because he was a big target and they were able to do that and he was able to beat people. Other than that, the rest of the receiving crew was quiet. And it's like, okay, don't keep trying to pound sand. Don't keep trying to force things in there. Play aggressive, but play to your advantage right now. Because it sounded like, at least on television, like you had the Buffalo crowd somewhat not quite certain which way they wanted to go with this thing. Should we leave? Do we stay? Do we yell? Do we, and that's where you want them.
I'll piggyback off that and I'll get back to you real quick. Mike, I echo that because the Buffalo crowd wasn't really that much of a factor until the pick 6. And on that pick 6, I mean, there was euphoria in that crowd. They couldn't believe that the Bengals were handing them that and then running it back to get the lead, which they had not had all day. I mean, there were people, I saw someone literally toss a beer can in the air. I saw people hugging each other. I mean, this is Bills Mafia we're talking about, one of the most passionate fan bases in all of the NFL. But to your point, the Bengals had the Bills on the ropes the whole game. They go up 14-3. They go up 21-11. They go up 28-18. They had them on the ropes. The crazy thing about this all is, Mike, the Bengals went 10 for 12 on third down. 10 for 12 on third down. That's insane. You should win a game by 20 if you go that. Instead, here we are again, talking about the Bengals losing 39-34. Mike, or Coach, you mentioned the receivers in this game. This is where I want to get to right now. Because at one point, I asked the people around me, where has Jamar Chase been all day? Where has Jamar Chase been all day? I should not be asking that question at any point during any Bengals game. I'm sorry, I should not. You have the best wide receiver on the planet in the NFL. I don't care who else you have on offense. I don't care if T. Higgins has 6 for 92 and 2 touchdowns while battling a concussion, clearly. Mike Gesicki was 6 for 86 and a touchdown. Mind you, he just came back from an injury like Joe Burrow did. Andre Joseph had some nice catches. Chase Brown had a touchdown reception. I don't care who else you have. Give Jamar Chase the ball and get out of the way. It is that simple. And why Zach Taylor does not realize that at crucial moments is mind-baffling. If that's a word. If it is, I just made it up. Okay? It is... If I have to literally think about the catches and targets Jamar Chase has, I don't care if you're leading. And then when you are leading, okay, fine. But when you're down, it's like, why didn't you go Jamar Chase earlier? If you're not going to run the football, if you're going to build a lead and stay on schedule, why aren't you going to Jamar Chase? Why are you not making him a factor in this game? And oh, by the way, let's go back to this real quick. Joe Burrow has been sacked twice in his last 2 games. That's great. It's really great. But you know what? They've been on corner blitzes. And then when the game was hanging in the balance, what do the Bills do? Oh, we can beat him with the corner blitz. Joe Burrow tries to go to Jamar Chase. So now you try to go to Jamar Chase when they're corner blitzing. The guy I said who was going to be a factor, we talked about him, Christian Benford, pick 6, game completely turns. Mike, explain this to me. Where was Jamar Chase? Where was the running game that worked so well last week against the Ravens? Why, when something works for the Bengals, they go, well, let's try to also do this? No, be great at what you're good at. It is that simple. Or is it, Mike, for this Bengals coaching staff?
Well, the run game wasn't working when it was Chase Brown. I think they did attempt that, but like Coach said, abandoning it too early. Like I said, I think you make an adjustment, and P. Ryan was running well, and seeing if that change at running back could be what the difference would be for them. I thought, I mean, like the play call on the pick 6, it's not a called pass play. It's a play that Joe Burrow is deciding to throw the pass because there's a corner blitz. Because if he gets that ball over that corner, it's a free 10 yards. It's hard for me to blame the play call because I don't know if that's even in there at all. Was it a package play when he gets under center, or is it just I see that they're about to send a corner blitz? I have a look with Jamar, just a thumbs up, something. Maybe we just lock eyes and he knows what I'm about to do. So that's where I'm on that, because it was a duo concept to the right, the same place that corner blitz was coming from. That corner blitz would kill it. Unless the running back made him miss, like that guy's unaccounted for in the blocking scheme. He can get in there, make a play. All these Bills defensive backs, I feel like, tackle well. At least in this game, they were. So they're not corners that you can run over, especially not Benford. Maybe somebody else, but I don't think that guy. So I get the idea, and maybe Burrow thought, I don't want to get a ineligible man downfield penalty, but whatever happens there, whatever you do, you can't throw the pick because, like you've said, you're on the plus side of the field. You're in a position that you can get a field goal. If you get kicked back 5 yards, it's first down. 1st and 15 is not a drive killer. It makes it a little harder, but it's not 1st and 20 like on a holding penalty that kills a lot of drives. You could turf it. You could still hand that off and just lose a yard or two. Or you could try to pump and throw around him or really get that thing way up in the air. And it seems like he didn't get the laces, which is interesting from under center. I just feel like normally the quarterback does get the laces in an under center snap. That's what was a little bit strange too. So I don't know if that was the ball got a little messed up on the exchange as well. So whatever happened there, obviously you can't throw that exact ball. You just can't make that play. You have to be able to get something a little more on it over the top of him, or you can pump and go around him, or you could turf it. You could hand it off. You could do whatever. You just can't make that throw. That throw was what you cannot do in that situation. It's hard for me to blame too much of the play calling because they are trying to run the ball from under center there. And it is just a situation of, I know that the corner's coming and I'm going to beat it.
Yeah.
And he had the right answer. It's just but you have to be able to make the play to punish that because you're throwing into a blitz. And even though on paper that works, like that guy's not in coverage, he can still get his hands up. He can still jump. He's still a player. And as frustrated as I think I and maybe everybody here gets when Bengals defenders are jumping at every Josh Allen pump fake or Lamar Jackson pump fake, that's one of those situations where, dang, I wish Joe Burrow had one of those because guys jump. And when they jump into the air, that's when you can go around them. If his hands are up here and he's in the air, that's the sidearm we talked about, whatever, changing the arm angle and getting that thing around him. So it's hard. It's hard to really judge the play call and we don't know it. Was that part of the play call, or was that something that was just a lock eyes with my teammate for the past since 2018 that they've been working together? Did we just lock eyes and we do this 100 times throughout a season? Or was it, hey, it's duo and there is a tag on there for the access throw if something's coming? That's what I don't know. So that's what makes it hard to do that because I would have not tagged anything. I would be like, hand this thing off, Joe. We're up 3. It's first down. If we end up in 2nd and 9, I trust you. I trust you to be able to get us out of this. So let's not ruin things on first down. But that's where we don't, it's always a little bit ambiguous about these play calls and trying to take a look at them because we just don't know. They could have been a freelance move from Joe Burrow to Jamar Chase.
Yeah, and Coach, I'll get back to you.
You know what? That's the crazy thing about it is you don't know how the play was called and any RPO type plays coming off of it. And you know what? You always try to, when you have schemes in the running game built in, you always have to have something. If they bring in corner, especially with the receivers so tight, if they're going to be a safety, are they going to walk a safety down? Because you want to get the play started. You may not be able to check out of it, but from the tight end standpoint and from the tackle standpoint, even if we've got to let the Mike linebacker go and we gain a yard, it's better that we start the play than lose 3. Or make something up with trying to, hey, let's make a play and get too cute. And all of a sudden now it's going 6 the other way.
Yeah. And again, it was the play that changed the whole game. And does some blame need to be applied to Joe Burrow? Unfortunately, yes. It's going to lead to a really interesting conversation on this show coming up, and then definitely on our show during the middle of the week. And I also have another question, Coach, for you on running backs and when it comes to playing in the snow, as the Bengals did today. We will get into all of that coming up next right here on the Bengals Squad Show. This episode of Bengal Squad is brought to you by Game Time. The World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994, and with 48 teams for the first time ever, it's going to be massive. But let's be honest, getting tickets is usually the hardest part. That's why the Game Time app is clutch, finally giving fans a real advantage when it comes to snacking seats. With Game Time, you can track price drops in real time, get alerts when great seats open, and you can buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands and makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of impossible. You pull up the app, and the layout makes it so simple to scroll through matchups and compare seat views. Pick a game, tap a section, and have your tickets locked in with minutes. No confusion, no hunting for the fine print. Plus, the seat view feature is a game changer. You literally see what the pitch looks like from your exact seat before you buy. So, take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets in every match, concert, or event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the Game Time app, make an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Game Time. It's very interesting when we think about Joe Burrow. And I read this article in The Athletic from Mike Sando last November after the second Ravens game. Well, that pains me to bring that up today. About, is Joe Burrow clutch? I'm going to put that on hold for just a brief moment. Art, I'm going to go back to you. So you coached in the NFC West in 2010, which coaching in Seattle, the weather can be treacherous. It wasn't like coaching in St. Louis where there was a dome, or the Cardinals in the desert, or the Niners where maybe it was cold, but the weather wasn't going to be arduous by any means. So in your coaching career, like, you're going to play a bad weather game at some point. But what running back is best fit for that kind of weather? And for the Bengals, as Mike, you were mentioning earlier, when you have guys like Chase Brown and Samaje Perine, like, what kind of running back do you want out there getting those hard-earned yards in the trenches with the weather as it was today in Buffalo?
Well, you know what? I think for the most part today, they did a good job of cleaning the lines and the numbers. That was their big emphasis. The rest of it, they really didn't care about. But we always liked, we did all the drills. We did wet ball drills. And I tell you what, they did a great job today of hanging on to the football. They didn't wear sleeves. They didn't have all the other things on that could make it very, very slick. So they were very ball secure conscious going into the game, with the exception of, Buffalo putting it on the ground twice, and one down on the goal line. You know what? I thought the running backs, they ran the ball well. I think where, excuse me, where they missed is there is, just like Mike was talking about, there's not a lot of wiggle because your footing isn't great. You don't know, it's not as secure as it always will be, whether it be on grass or even if you're playing on grass and it's a little bit wet, because they can all absorb that water so much better than they used to be able to. So it's not about changing cleats. It's, about going out and going through the pregame warm-up, testing out the shoes that you want to wear and then living with them. And then throughout the game, making sure that they're clean, making sure that they're still fresh. And preferably, I had a great one. I had Mike Allstott, who was great in the cold. I mean, he just hammered down because he was a heavy-footed runner, although very natural at doing that. But he said, you know what, I'm going to get yards. We're going to get positive yards. Ernest Graham was the same way. I always used to say about Ernest, the best thing about Ernest is he falls that way. He doesn't try to outwiggle people. Steven Jackson was the same way. He was a big, powerful man. And when you get those kind of deals, you want to have somebody who can make it hard, because you got to remember, it's hard to tackle when your arms are cold. So you can put that back on them. They feel very, very confident, and they just want the ball. And let's shorten the game, and let's try to get out of here.
It's very interesting because I think about the great teams throughout NFL history. I think about teams like the New England Patriots that had Tom Brady at quarterback, and then Corey Dillon at running back, and guys like Lawrence Maroney, LeGarrette Blount. The Bengals, the way they've built their team, I believe this, and I think a lot of us do too, is their identity is their quarterback and their wide receivers, and that's fine. I think look, it's going to sell tickets if you win, or if you maybe have a defense that can complement your offense. But at the same time, Chase Brown, who's their lead running back, he's not that big running back that can carry the rock so many times in games like today, as evidenced by the fact that he only had 12 carries. Mind you, he only gained 23 yards. And even on that first drive, when they ran the ball several times, you could tell that it was hard for them to run the ball. And that takes me to our next conversation. And this is one that I find very interesting, because there are people, I have Browns fans who text me this all the time, that Joe Burrow is the reason why the Bengals lost this game or lost Super Bowl 56. That's absolutely not true. Don't even believe a word they say about that. But I am going to ask the question, because the last time, I don't know if you guys know this, and it's okay if you don't, I had to think about this when my cousin, who's sitting right next to me, asked me this question a few days ago. He asked me, when was the last time Joe Burrow led a game-winning drive in which the Bengals were trailing, they took the lead, and then they won? The answer to that question is Week 6 of 2022. Now, again, we say that it's not Joe Burrow's fault, it's the defense's, and I am wholeheartedly in that court. But at the same time, is there some truth to the potential narrative that Joe Burrow is not a quote-unquote clutch quarterback? Mike, I'll start with you.
Yeah. Well, I think what I'd push back on is that the outcome of the game is, obviously, we've talked a lot about the defense not always decided by the quarterback, right? You could think of Josh Allen wasn't not clutch in the 2021 playoff run because his defense gave up a field goal with 13 seconds left in the game, and then also gave up a touchdown on the first drive that the Chiefs had. What I would look at is how they're playing play by play. And if you look at since 2016 in the fourth quarter, Joe Burrow has the 5th best success rate among NFL quarterbacks, which we've talked about what success rate is, but it's basically just keeping yourself ahead of the chains in a good position. And you look at some other statistics, and he's not down there. He's first, actually, in total win probability added in the fourth quarter in these tight games, but it just doesn't matter if your defense doesn't finish the job. I understand he does now have a couple of turnovers and big moments, but it's just I think that happens. I think when you throw the ball a lot, you're going to have turnovers. I think some of this is just variance because play from play to play, Joe has been clutch. And you can think of the playoff runs and how maybe those are not touchdown drives, but driving down to kick a field goal to win the game, I guess you don't get the style and the the game winning touchdown or whatever. You won in that situation. And I understand some of it's handing the ball off, but I think of the 2021 playoff run against the Titans. There was obviously you had the big interception against Tannehill. And what happened on the way back? Joe Burrow makes a great throw to Jamar Chase in a game that he didn't play particularly well and got battered. Nobody on offense really played all that well. But makes that great throw to Jamar Chase, sets him up for a game-winning field goal. What happens in the Chiefs game? Obviously, you get the great interception. And then Joe Burrow takes him down the field, and Joe Mixon, too, on this one a lot, and sets up a game-winning field goal. Yeah. So when I'm thinking of those moments, and I'm thinking of him in general, clutch, I think he's there. I think he's there because I've seen not clutch. That's Andy Dalton. That is when I felt like when he would come into the game, it was worrying. It was just how are we going to screw this up? In the playoffs, every time the bright lights came on, he shrunk. And I feel like it's the opposite for Burrow a lot of the time. The bright lights come on and he plays better. So to me, I think he's clutch. I think you look at a lot of statistics, he's clutch. You can point to some games like today where he had the 2 interceptions. I think one of those, luck. That is just unlucky. The other one, that was on him. He also threw multiple touchdowns in that fourth quarter.
4 touchdowns overall.
Yeah, 4 touchdowns overall, and I think 2 of them came in the fourth quarter. One to T. Higgins to give them a chance, and one to Mike Gesicki earlier. That was a heck of a throw. If that was in the fourth quarter too, I can't exactly remember, but I'm pretty sure 2 fourth quarter touchdowns to get him into position to win that game. I understand it wasn't perfect, but a lot went right. So it's hard to have the clutch conversation because how often do you get that moment? And to me, I think he seizes it more often than not. I think you have the games like the Chiefs in 2020. That was last year. The Chiefs game last year, I believe that was a moment he got. And today, the Bills game, I don't think I would classify that as a great fourth quarter performance. I do think it was fine, though. I think the 2 picks make it, he obviously not going to have a good game, but he also threw 2 touchdowns and he kept the offense alive. A lot of not a lot, but every third and long, he gave him an opportunity. He gave him a chance. That's how you end up going, 10 of 12 on third down. So that's where I'm at with it, is just you can look at specific moments like today and just look at the interceptions. But I think when you look at from every single play in a clutch moment, whether that's the fourth quarter, whatever, overtime, I think you come away saying Joe Burrow played really well more often than you come away saying Joe Burrow really screwed that up.
Yeah, and Coach, I'll get to you on the other side of this because I do believe that it is very hard to say he isn't. And I say that because there are other parts of this team the last 2 seasons and even 3 seasons, if you want to go back that far, in particular, that explain the reason why. We'll touch on that when we conclude this edition of the Bengals Squad Show. Today's edition of Bengal Squad is brought to you by FanDuel. So the NFL Sundays are moving fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different, like Christian Bedford's pick 6 today in Buffalo. That's what makes live betting, with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. Wonder if we've seen that before. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as guys heat up. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked in every snap, every drive, every possibility. I'm telling you right now, plus 750 tomorrow night, Monday Night Football, or Marion Hampton, 100 plus rushing yards. That is my play for tomorrow night. Chargers, Eagles, Monday Night Football. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. I find Joe Burrow and people that say he isn't clutch fascinating because I do think they have a point. They point to the pick he threw against the Ravens last year. They point to his mistakes against Pittsburgh the first time around. They point to a whole bunch of other things. They point to interceptions. They point to the fact that he couldn't get it done in the Super Bowl, the fact that the defense carried the Bengals that year, which, I mean, let's be honest, the defense was really good, but Joe Burrow still had to make some incredible throws and incredible plays with his legs. I think it's demoralizing because I look at the last two seasons and the Ravens game on Thursday Night Football last year, the touchdown to Jamar Chase, the second one that he just aired it out completely as the Ravens had all the momentum. That should have been like the play that said, "Not tonight. We're winning this game." The third touchdown chase should have been one of a highlight moment. Instead, it wasn't. The Chargers comeback last year, where he's literally running around for his life making plays. Evan McPherson misses 2 field goals. You can go to the Commanders game last year on Monday Night Football. Burrow was unbelievable that night. The Bengals defense didn't even force a punt. The Commanders scored on every drive, practically. Like, he should not be in these situations. And it all goes back to 2 points. The one I made earlier, which is the fact that Joe Burrow cannot overcome a bad defense because he physically can't play defense. He has said that if he wasn't a quarterback, he played linebacker. Unfortunately, he's not going to play linebacker in the NFL as far as I'm concerned. So he can't play defense. The defense has to do its job. He can't do anything about it. So there's that. But then, number 2, I kind of lost my train of thought there. I got so fired up about the Bengals defense. But it just goes back to the fact that he should not be in these situations because this team around him, and it goes back, this is the point I'm going to make. If Joe Burrow hadn't been hurt this season, today confirmed that the Bengals would not be a playoff team. They may be 5-8, they may be 6-7. They would not be a playoff team. Coach, when Joe Burrow stepped on the field after the interception, when it's 32-28, and I know what happened on the next play, we all know. Did you think, we got this, Joe Burrow's fine, he's going to shake that interception off, he can lead this team down the field and score? Do you have the confidence in those situations that Joe Burrow can be that guy and that clutch quarterback?
Oh, absolutely. I think today you probably saw on both sides on both teams, you saw two of arguably two of the greatest quarterbacks in the NFL today and maybe always. These two guys were very competitive. They went about it, although they had different circumstances in the game. He played extremely well for 3 quarters and really for 4 quarters, but he had no control over what went on the other side of the ball. He had no control over field position. The 2 picks, yeah, they happened, but he is good enough to overcome those. But every quarterback needs an ensemble, a working class around him because you're not going to give him every win. Somebody has to help him. It's like the sign they used to have where the turtle was sitting up on the fence post. How did it get there? Somebody had to put it there. And I think that's what teamwork is all about.
It is, and I'll get back to you in a second here, Mike. It's so fascinating to me because I'm sitting or standing most of the time today at Highmark Stadium in Orchard Park. I'm thinking to myself, can you imagine how much easier Joe Burrow's job would be if he literally didn't have to be Superman every single possession? And this is not the first time that I'm sure most of us have thought about that. But it goes back to, and I know we've kind of been bouncing around topics today as we wrap up today's edition. But it goes back to Zach Taylor, who I can't believe we haven't mentioned his name a lot today, and Al Golden, who we mentioned him a lot today, unfortunately, and for reasons rightfully so. It goes back to this, and Art, you touched on it earlier. The Bills were down by 10. Did they abandon their running game? No. Why? First off, they led the NFL in rushing yards per game coming into today. They probably still lead it, considering how well they did today running the football. And they realized, okay, this is what we do best. We're going to run the football. And they did. They gave the ball to Josh Allen. They said, Josh, go beat this team with your legs. They did. He did. The Bengals, up 10, cramped up again. When it came time to winning, they cramped up. They abandoned the running game, so they put Joe Burrow in tough situations, corner blitzes. Oh, now you want to call a play to Jamar Chase. Where was that earlier in the game? Nowhere to be found. Seemed like that. And then you lose the game with what you do best, and the Bills win the game with what they do best. And because you can't stop a lick when it matters, we've seen that so many times this season where we know where the ball is going, and yet personnel mismanagement, it is a disgrace sometimes when I know what needs to happen. Mike, coach, and yet this Bengals defense does not. This is exactly why. And this has been this way now for the last 2+ seasons. I don't know if it's arrogance. I don't know if it's they don't have the resources to fix whatever is wrong. But Zach Taylor and Al Golden and this coaching staff, they have run their course. And we'll talk about this a lot as the season continues and the final 4 games, because it doesn't appear it's going to get much better when you look at who's on the schedule next week in the Baltimore Ravens. It's the fact that you've run your course with them. It may be time for new voices to get in there. These kinds of losses, Mike, are so excruciating. So just, I don't know if there's a synonym for maddening that describes it accurately. You have 10-point leads, 7-point leads, whatever it may be, and you know that the Bengals aren't going to get the job done when it comes time to winning. I thought these weren't the same old Bengals before 2021. I'm now starting to rethink that because of what I've seen and saw again today with a game that was absolutely winnable. But once again, coaching in situational football and personnel management, not there by any means necessary. Gentlemen, final thoughts before we close today's show. I mean, a fun game, but a maddening familiar result.
Yeah, what I really liked about the game, it was an awesome game. Like, we do all this talking, somebody had to lose. And that's unfortunate, right? Because this was 2 Goliaths throwing haymakers back and forth at each other. The Bengals were the best version of the Bengals offense a lot of this game. You had the spread, and obviously Jamar Chase didn't get as involved, and that's probably a lot to do with how Buffalo wanted to play him. I think that they, spent a lot of their resources on Jamar Chase, but he's throwing these beautiful balls to T. Higgins on the back shoulder or in a position where only his guy can get it. And he's throwing that to Mike Gesicki and just being a surgeon the entire way down the field. And early on, it was death by 1,000 cuts, and he does not care about how short the gains are. He's throwing these nice passes and making every right read. And on the other side, you had Josh Allen doing his best version of himself, extending plays, making time, making guys miss, running. I think I saw a stat. He had the most scramble yards today out of any quarterback in the NFL so far this season with 86. So I think it was some of the best football Josh Allen's played, some of the best football up until the interceptions that Joe Burrow had played. Somebody had to lose, and it's just who's going to capitalize on the mistakes, because neither quarterback's going to be perfect. You can think of Jordan Battle dropping an interception, that possible interception that Josh Allen threw. And on the other side, you've got the Bills catching theirs. And that just is what it is. It's somebody had to lose. It's unfortunate that you line up every team in the NFL this week and look at the offenses. These will probably be 2 of the top 5 performances. And like I said, it's just somebody's got to lose. That's the fun. That's what makes this such a great game. But at the end of the day, just a couple of different things. And we're looking at this, and maybe the Bills squad show or whatever is saying, like, how come Josh Allen couldn't finish the game? He threw that pick to Jordan Battle and the Bengals just ran the ball out or whatever.
Yeah.
But Brentford, if he would have caught that interception that was gifted to him from Joe Burrow, then we could have won the game. It's just, how exactly does the ball fall in this situation? It's unfortunate that for the Bengals, it bounced the wrong way at the end of the day. I think both defenses are probably thinking we could have had a better day. But like, you look at this and it's just, it was a great game. And it's why I love football, just watching these 2 offenses, these 2 elite quarterbacks go at it and seeing that happen on a football field. You compare that to most of the games that happen, and you just don't see this level of quarterbacking. So that's what I wanted to bring up, is just like, this was an awesome game for football. It was Joe Burrow and Josh Allen were playing their A+ elite games, and we got to see them go back and forth for 60 minutes.
Yeah, that's very true.
Arguably the best game on today so far. It was competitive. You had two gladiators out there winging it, trying to will their team to victory. And unfortunately, one team stepped up and made plays, and the other one didn't.
Yeah, that's very true. Coach, real quick, final question to you. When you're sitting at 4-9 after this devastating loss, knowing you had a chance, still outside chance in making the playoffs, winning your division, how do you keep these guys engaged? What's it like when you go into the facility on Monday to prepare for the next game? How tough is that?
Well, you know what? After any loss is tough, because the one thing is that players are more resilient than coaches are. So by next week, by Wednesday, the time they start practicing, they'll move on to the next game. What you have to do, especially with as many games that are left, you have to not show panic, not quit, not show them anything. It is business as usual, and what is usual or as usual is to get 2 hours better every day.
Yeah.
And if you can do that, we're going to be better. We got to the position we are. We're getting help. Pittsburgh beating Baltimore helped you today, but we didn't take advantage of it.
That's a great point. One final stat before we close. Josh Allen in December and January regular season games since 2020 with the victory on Sunday, 25-3. That is a great stat for a great quarterback. The Bengals have one too. Unfortunately, I can't help but think Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers, because of how bad this defense has been, other things around the Bengals and the team and the organization, 3 years of his prime, just not what it should have been. That's going to do it for this edition of Bengal Squad. We are part of the Lockdown Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network in America and the world, your team every day. Bengal Squad is the twice-a-week long-form conversational supplement to the daily Lockdown Bengals podcast, where we have long-form conversations on the Bengals during the season, the off-season, and of course, James Rapine and Jake Lisco with the daily Lockdown Bengals podcast. They have their recap and breakdown of the game on the Lockdown Bengals YouTube channel and wherever you listen to podcasts. Mike, we will see you next Sunday after the Bengals and the Ravens. Coach, I will see you later this week with Jake Lisco and maybe James Rapine as we have more conversations on this game and look ahead to the second edition of the Bengals and the Ravens. Mike Santagana is at Bengals_Sands on Twitter. Art Valero is at Arthur Valero 3 on Twitter. I'm Alex Frank at Frankie_90 on Twitter. Thank you so much for listening to this edition of the Bengal Squad Show, part of the Lockdown Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network in America and the world, your team every day.